You ever notice how the world just keeps moving, no matter who's lying bleeding in the street? That's Chicago for you, cold winds slicing through subway columns, drivers honking like they're in a contest, and folks walking with their heads down, wrapped up in their own worlds, not even blinking at what they don't want to see. I learned that at 12 years old, the night my life spun out from under me and the city nearly swallowed me whole. I'll tell you the whole thing, but let me warn you right off. This isn't the kind of story that makes you believe in heroes. Well, maybe it is, but not the ones you expect. See, I was that bundled-up kid hunched over a busted bike behind a dumpster, knuckles raw from cold and chain grease, hair pulled back with a raggedy old bandana that had seen better days. Name's Elijah, or at least that's what my mom called me, back before she got taken by some drunk in a hit and run, and the world decided I was just one more problem nobody wanted to fix. The shelter system? Forget it in many fists, too many rules, too many nights staring at a ceiling wishing I could just hear her humming, just one more time. So I made the street my home, patching bikes, keeping my head down, learning how to be invisible. You know what I mean? But that night, the wind had teeth. The city was nothing but shadows and neon folks rushing past, eyes never landing on mine, the kind of place where you could shout for help and nobody would so much as look up from their phone. I was working on my chain, thinking maybe I'd get this old rust bucket moving again, when sirens started up somewhere in the distance, just background noise, right? Only the world was about to swerve right into me, whether I wanted it or not. It all went sideways at State and Monroe, just as the light changed. The cop out there, white guy, face red, looking like he'd wrestled with the day and lost, was waving at traffic, probably dreaming about his dinner, maybe wishing for a different job. I remember how he looked right before it happened, arms in the air, yelling at some delivery van, his voice echoing off the glass and steel. Then came the roar screech of tires, flash of silver in SUV, flying through the intersection, hitting him hard enough to make the crowd gasp and scatter. The cop went down like a sack of bricks, blood blooming under him before his hat even hit the ground. And you know how it goes, phones came out, folks started recording, but nobody moved. Not one person. I could feel my heart hammering, hands slick on the handlebars. Every voice in my head screamed, "Stay out of it." Black kid in a hoodie, hands on a bleeding white cop? Yeah, that'd go over real well. They'd see what they wanted: thug, criminal, threat. Not a kid, not a helper. But then I heard her voice of me, mom, soft and stubborn as ever, whispering in my head, "You don't get to pick how they see you, baby, just how you act. Be good, even if they ain't." So I dropped my bike and ran right into the traffic, folks yelling at me to get back, horns blaring, cameras aimed. I knelt by the officer, trying not to look at the broken angle of his arm, the blood pooling dark and sticky. I pulled out her scarf, red, worn soft by years of hugs, and tied it around his arm, pressing down as hard as I could. "Stay with me, okay?" I whispered, voice shaking. "You're gonna be all right. Just hang on, man, please." Nobody helped. Not one. And when the sirens finally started getting closer, I realized I had to really move or this guy wouldn't make it. I sprinted, heart pounding, lungs burning, toward the traffic booth a couple blocks over, yelling for help. 2 officers there, one sipping coffee, looked at me like I was a stray dog. "Cops down back at State, and Monroe's bleeding bad," I shouted. They called it in, and one of them started asking questions, real slow, real careful, like he already knew I was trouble. "You see what happened? You tie that scarf. Why you got blood all over you?" Back at the scene, they were all business yellow tape, flashing lights, crowd kept at a safe distance. Paramedics over the cop, cops over me, hands on my shoulders, questions sharp and hard. I tried to explain, but it was like talking to a wall. "You just happened to be there? You sure you didn't see the driver? You got an address kit?" Before I knew it, cuffs were snapping on my wrists, someone bagging up my mom's scarf like it was evidence, and folks in the crowd whispering, "They're arresting the kid. That can't be right." But nobody stepped forward. Not a single person. In the back of the cruiser, I just stared out the window, feeling that old ache settling, in the kind that comes from being invisible until it's time to blame someone. At the station, they took my hoodie, took my shoes, took my words, and wrote them down like I was reciting a bedtime story. Not a plea for help. Hours went by, nobody told me if the cop lived or died. They left me in a holding cell, nothing but a metal bench, flickering lights, my pocket empty where the scarf used to be. And the shame, yeah, that rolled in thick not because I'd helped, but because I'd hoped someone would finally see me. Eventually, a detectivia woman, Latina, sharp-eyed came in. "Elijah, right?" she asked, voice like she was still trying to decide if I was worth the trouble. "You know why you're here?" I just shook my head. "I didn't hurt him," I said, and I meant it. She asked about the scarf, about where I was, about witnesses and cameras. "Nothing. So you're telling me you just found him?" "Yeah." "And you ran for help?" "That's right." She looked at me a long time, then left, the door closing like a final answer. Meanwhile, across town, the officer Moran, his name was fighting for his life in a hospital bed. Nurses, beeping machines, that smell of bleach and fear. At dawn, he woke up, blinking against the light, confused, then scrawled on a notepad. "The boy, where is he?" "He helped me." The nurse passed that message up the chain, and before long, it landed in Detective Marquez's hands. She stormed back into the precinct, opened my cell, and said, "He woke up. He said you saved him." I stared, not sure if I'd heard right. "So they believe me?" "He does," she said, and for the first time, something in me loosened. But, the story didn't end with them taking off the cuffs and sending me on my way. By the next morning, social media had grabbed on some hospital staffer posted about the kid hero, and soon my face was everywhere. From suspect to savior, they wrote, but none of those people had seen me freezing behind a dumpster or eating out of a vending machine or trying to stay invisible. Marquez asked if I had anywhere to Gowhat could I say. "I got a bridge, but it's loud." She bought me pancakes, found me a place to crash, and didn't ask for my story unless I wanted to tell it. Later that afternoon, she brought me to the hospital press everywhere, the mayor's aide giving a speech, cameras flashing. I just wanted to see the cop I'd helped. When I walked in, Officer Moran looked at me and said, "You were the only one who came." I handed him the scarf cleaned, pressed, back where it belonged, and he pulled me into a hug, one-armed but strong. "You saved my life, kid," he said. "You didn't deserve what happened after." I looked at the floor. "It happens," I told him. But he just shook his head. "It shouldn't." 3 days later, they held a ceremony on the City Hall steps press. Police chiefs, a crowd bigger than I'd ever seen. The mayor said, "Courage doesn't always wear a badge. Sometimes it's a boy with nothing to gain who chooses to act anyway." I stood there in a borrowed suit, heart pounding, scarf in my pocket, and tried not to look for my mom in the crowd. Maybe, finally, I'd done what she always hoped been good, even if they weren't. That night, as the sun sank behind the skyline, Marquez found me sitting on the steps, handed me a soda, and said, "You did good today." I asked if people would forget me, and she shook her head. "Not a chance. But even if they do, you know who you are now. And maybe that's all any of us can ask for, just to be seen, really seen, even once." So, tell me, if you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Is it ever safe to do the right thing when the world's looking for someone to blame? I want to hear what you think about courage, about justice, about what we owe each other out there on those cold streets. If this story moved you, hit that like button, subscribe, and let's talk, because these days kindness shouldn't need permission to exist, don't you think?